Welcome to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited about the lesson today as we continue our study on the leadership lessons of Jesus, or Jesus as a model for leadership. I believe that Jesus is an incredible leadership model for us, and I want to take us to Mark chapter 10, verses 35 through 45. I believe if we were to ask a question about what would be the core tenet of leadership from Jesus Christ, I believe we can find an answer here in Mark chapter 10. And it comes in a very challenging moment for the disciples. And I want to talk a little bit about, I've got some things I have prepared on my left or my right, and then also on my left, some information. So if you see me looking back and forth, it's because I got things sitting to my left and my right that I have just a lot that comes out of this particular study that I want to share with you today. And I know I don't have a lot of time, so I just want to hit some things and hopefully hit them in a way that gives clarity to each of us when it comes to this particular model of leadership that Jesus gives us in these verses, Mark 10, verses 35 through 45. So again, welcome. God bless each of you. I pray for those who are watching now, those who will see this in the future. I pray that God blesses in a mighty way. So I do want to take a moment to invite you, if you haven't already done so, to go to YouTube and look for Fortified City Christian Church on YouTube, and you'll see messages that are being placed there each week. And I encourage you to go like the page and encourage others, invite them to like it as well. And then I also want to take a moment to ask that we be in prayer for Monroe and Evangelist Tyler, as they will be traveling this week. They'll leave Friday for Chicago. I ask that you will pray for God's blessings, protection as they travel. And then I want to take a moment to wish Monroe happy birthday. It's not today, it is tomorrow. But I do want to take a moment, and we'll come back at the end of the month and gather all of our June birthdays back up and bless each of you. But I do want to take a moment to wish Monroe a happy birthday. He gives so much of himself to Fortified City, and I do want to take a moment to just thank him publicly here and to wish him a happy 27th birthday, I think is what I heard him say earlier. So we do thank God for his continued blessings in his life. But with that, on Mark 10, verses 35 through 45, they read like this. It says, then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him saying, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask." And he said to them, "What do you want me to do for you?" And they said to him, "Grant us that we may sit one on your right hand and the other on your left in your glory." But Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you ask. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with?" They said to him, "We are able." So Jesus said to them, "You will indeed drink the cup that I drink, and with the baptism I am baptized with, you will be baptized. But to sit on my right hand and on my left hand is not mine to give, but it is for those for whom it is prepared." And when the 10 heard it, they began to be greatly displeased with James and John. But Jesus called them to himself and said to them, "You know that those who are considered rulers over the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. Yet it shall not be so among you. But whoever desires to become great among you, they shall be your servant. And whoever of you desires to be first shall be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many. I want to take this moment, this next 40 minutes or so to teach. If I were to give it a topic, I don't necessarily have a topic, but if I was to give it a topic, I would give this a topic of total commitment to leadership. Total commitment to leadership, or servanthood as a model for leadership. Servanthood as a model for leadership. Quite honestly, I would argue that it is the best model for leadership. For Jesus tells us, if you desire to be great, then desire to serve. If you desire to be great, then desire to serve. This lesson that Jesus teaches comes at a moment that could potentially fracture the team. These 12 men have been serving with Jesus. And James and John, quite honestly, if we can be critical of them for this question, but we've got to really be honest. Isn't it really our desire to be the best at whatever it is we're doing? If we're honest, we would answer yes to that question. You know, if I'm playing a sport, if I'm on a team, or if I'm on an individual sport, I want to be number one. I was driving to work this morning and I was listening to this young player who's playing in college basketball, and he's one of those that is potentially projected to go number one in the draft. And they asked him, what does he think about, being drafted number one? And he said, what would it mean to you to be drafted number one? He said, first of all, let me begin by saying that I'm going to be honored to play anywhere in the NBA. But then he said, but it would mean a lot to me to come out of this draft first. And all of us, if we're honest, if we are competing, we want to win. And quite honestly, I would argue, if you don't want to win, then why are you competing? So what these two men, if you think about it within the context of the world and what we're taught about leadership, if we desire to lead, we want to lead at the highest levels. And so I want to bring that up because I want to think about the question that James and John asked, because it's easy to sit on the outside of this and super spiritualize this conversation, and then to be really critical of James and John without really thinking about it within the context of what we've always been taught about leadership, what we've always been taught about competing, what we've always been taught about these things in our lives. If we are in academics, we reward the kid who graduates number one. We call him the valedictorian and we make a big deal about it. There is a culture that we are growing up in that values being first. It's no different back then than it is now. But what Jesus is trying to get us to understand within the context is, what is it that you are really desiring to be first at is what matters. It's not a problem with wanting to be the best. The question is, what are you really trying to be the best at? And depending on what it is you're desiring to succeed at, it will determine what you need to do. What you'll see in this particular lesson is another example of Jesus turning what we've learned and understood in our lives in the natural upside down. He tells us a lot. If you listen to the teachings of Jesus, you'll hear him say a lot. The kingdom of God is like, and he will be making these comparisons to the kingdom of the world in order to get us to understand that the kingdom of God operates differently than the kingdoms of the world. This is another one of those lessons. And if you think about this, going through this, James and John, the other disciples, have been serving with Jesus, and these two men recognize the power of the man, Jesus Christ, that they are serving. They've watched many things. This comes after he predicts for the third time his death and his resurrection. They've witnessed the power of God, and they're listening to, though they don't quite understand the lesson that he's teaching when he's talking about his death and resurrection. But what they're gathering from it is that they are not here in the midst of an ordinary individual. That Jesus is not like any other leader that they have ever been around in their lifetimes, nor had they ever heard of before. And so James and John, the sons of Zebedee, it's the same way he calls them. The sons of Zebedee, James and John, when he calls them, they were tending their nets with their father and the hired servants. These are the two. He says, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. And they follow him. He calls them to something greater. They now see the something greater, and they're asking him to experience this with him at the most highest level. Permit us to sit at your right and your left hand.